So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September meeting of the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority Commission. I'm Andrew Taherzadeh, Assistant Director of Marketing Communications here at the EDA. I am your moderator for this meeting, which means I will have control over the audio functions of this call, and I will control the slides that will be used during the meeting. At this time, I would like to ask all those on this call to please mute their devices or microphones when you are not presenting. Now, I would like to welcome members of the commission to the meeting. Chair Kathy Lang, Vice Chair James Quigley, Secretary Ron Johnson, Treasurer Stephen Partridge, and members Lenny Hainsworth, Rocky Mitchell, Pallavi Sabu, Joe Vitalige, and Rick Wagner. FCEDA President and CEO Victor Hoskins and Executive Vice President Alex Imes are on the call, as are EDA Consul Mike Graff, several EDA staff members, consultants who represent the EDA in overseas and California, and our marketing communications consultants. I would also like to welcome Fairfax County officials who have joined us for the meeting. Presenting from the FCEDA tonight will be Chair Lang, President and CEO Victor Hoskins, Vice President of Operations Donna Hurwitz, and Vice President of Marketing Communications Anna Nissanen. This meeting is being recorded. Members of the FCEDA Commission who have questions will have the opportunity to ask questions as they normally would during meetings. If anyone from the public has any questions, please select the chat function at the bottom of the Zoom screen to ask a question, or email Cheryl Martelli at the FCEDA. Cheryl's email address will be posted in the chat box. We will not answer questions from the public during the meeting, but we will respond to all questions in writing afterward. With that, I'll ask Chair Lang to begin the agenda. Chair Lang?
Thank you very much, Andrew, and a very good evening to everyone. It's hard to believe that the summer is over, so welcome to our September meeting. We have a very informative meeting tonight for you. In addition to our regular agenda items, we'll have a presentation from Mr. Jonathan Griffith of Capital One Center. So I think we can get started. The first thing I want to do is to ask for the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. So may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 2022 meeting?
Motion.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Great. I'm going to ask council to take the roll.
Thank you, Chair Lang. I'll call the roll on the commissioners who were at the meeting, and we'll have, if it's their pleasure, Ms. Hainsworth, Mr. Vigilic, and Mr. Partridge abstain because they weren't at the meeting. So I'll start. This is the calling the question on the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Mr. Wagner?
We may have to come back later to him,
Okay.
Council Graff.
And Ms. Sabu?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Quigley?
Aye.
And Chair Lang.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Great. We have a quorum. Thank you very much. And so I'm looking to see if Commissioner Partridge has joined us to do the treasurer's report. If not, I will take it. This report represents 2 months, 17% of fiscal year 2023, and 13% of the budget has been expended. Are there any questions? Okay, very good. I see that Commissioner Hainsworth has also now joined us. So in the fall of 2020, we did begin a series of guest speakers to provide the commission and staff with various perspectives about a post-COVID-19 economic recovery. These thought leaders will help provide us the strategic vision for the future. And with that, I would like Commissioner Vitalige to introduce tonight's speaker.
Thank you, Chairman Lang. I'm honored and privileged to introduce a colleague, a friend of mine, John Griffith, who's the managing director of the Capital One Center here in Tysons, Virginia. John is the managing director of the Center for our global headquarters, which we are proudly based in Fairfax County, specifically Tyson's, and his oversight of the public-facing components of the planned 6 million square foot development project. These include the retail and common areas, spaces of the property, a world-class, and I mean this, world-class performing arts and event center, Capital One Hall, and the Watermark Hotel, and 300 key boutique suites within that hotel. John joined Capital One in 2014 and has been responsible for much of the design of the campus, assisting in zoning and entitlement activities, design and construction of multiple mixed-use buildings, and the development of numerous placemaking activities on the site, to include the public arts display on the rooftop and the beer garden, the Perch, which John only allows me to go to in full disclosure after hours. John managed the building operations at ExxonMobil before he joined Capital One at its 325-acre headquarters, also in Fairfax. He's also worked on numerous roles across the area, including nearly a decade assisting the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on special projects in buildings and sites of national significance, including the U.S. Capitol, the Supreme Court, and the Cheyenne Mountain NORAD facilities. So he knows some secret information for sure. John has really led the construction and design of what we have achieved at Capital One's campus for so much of the time that I've been at Capital One, but he's also the brainchild of what's to come at Capital One. And I know I get excited. I know I'm biased, but I get very much excited about what we see in campus. And I know it's going to play significant importance to the conversation we have tonight and the future for the board. Commissioner Pallaby and I have been working with staff on placemaking activities and where we could take placemaking in and around the county. And so hopefully you'll get some insights from John tonight on what we were able to achieve at Capital One and where we are going. So with that glowing introduction, John, which you will of course return the favor to me at some point in the future, I turn it over to you, my friend.
All right, Joe. Can everybody hear me? I want to make sure mics and all that are working correctly. I see some nods, so perfect. So thank you so much, Joe. That was glowing, very unnecessary, but certainly so excited to be here with you all, and excited to be here in Fairfax County. I mean, what an incredible transformation we're seeing here in Tyson's over the last decade so far, and we have, you know, so many years left in the Tyson's plan, but just so excited to be here and so excited to let you all know a little bit of a glimpse about what we're doing here at Capital One, what Capital One Center is about, and where we really see the future of the county from an economic development perspective. So as Joe mentioned, I am the managing director of Capital One Center. And as he also mentioned, what that really entails is all of the public facing elements of our headquarters campus. We've gone through a pretty dramatic transformation over the last 4 or 5 years, really taking what used to be kind of an insulated suburban corporate headquarters campus and flipping that upside down, really welcoming the public in, not keeping people away at our gates, but really encouraging the public to come in and engage in thought, engage in conversation, and just engage with our company, our associates, but also with each other as a community here in one place, here together at Capital One Center. Andrew, if you'll flip. So, you know, what I like to say is, what is Capital One Center? I think everyone's aware of Capital One. You're aware that we have been here in the Fairfax County community for several decades now, but what is Capital One Center? It is the growing mixed-use development that really defines and has started to define the Tyson's East neighborhood. We're located right at the footstep of the McLean Metro Station, and really have started to combine all of these mixed-use elements. We've had the corporate office for a long time. We're growing in that respect, but really starting to double down on this notion of mixed use, this notion of community, this notion of accessibility. Accessibility in terms of the way people like quite physically access this location, whether it be through public transportation, through single-use vehicles, which we're trying to help to drive a dialogue away from, and just this notion of accessibility from an all-encompassing demographic perspective. We're really here to create a space that's open for all different thoughts, for all different peoples, for all different demographics, where people can come together and be as one. So my purview and really the purview of Capital One Center not only includes our kind of mixed use components, but also includes Capital One Hall. If you haven't had a chance to check out Capital One Hall, I would certainly encourage everyone to do so. It's a fantastic corporate event center that Capital One can utilize during the day for our large format meetings, but more importantly, it's a place for our community to come together and congregate. So we have a unique relationship with the county through a conduit with Arts Fairfax to welcome in community arts groups, nonprofits into the venue, into the space, and really to help support them to grow arts in our community. And you're going to hear that kind of as a common thread as I talk, is about this notion of, we talk a lot about live, work, and play and placemaking, but it's this aspect of the arts and culture that I think is really kind of this glue and this kind of catalyst that can really drive change and drive vibrant communities. And the purview also includes of Capital One Center, the Watermark Hotel. First and foremost, an associate accommodation. So Capital One has maybe 50,000 associates across the country and the world, but really wanted to create a unique destination for those traveling to our headquarters campus to accommodate them. But more than that, wanted to create and facilitate a place where the public, the community, can engage, where our associates can come together with our neighbors and foster this sense of community, this thought partnership, and this innovation. Really, all of this born though out of the Tyson's comprehensive plan that the Fairfax County Board put into place in 2010. I was not a part of that conversation, but I have been living it now for the last 8-10 years, and I really have been so impressed with what the county put in place to kind of drive this change in Tyson's. As the Metro line, the Silver Line came to be, but really just the really thought that went into driving this, and I think it's really reaped a lot of benefits, at least from Capital One's perspective, and what we've been able to create as we've developed out Capital One Center. And I kind of leave this slide with this note, is really we're trying to foster and create spaces through the built environment, right, that transcend that built space and really create unique moments, unique opportunities, unique kind of collision points. We talk about that a lot in our workplace, is about these casual collisions, these places where people from all different walks of life, all different talks of life can come together and create unique opportunities, unique ideas, and unique experiences. And that really kind of encapsulates what Capital One Center is all about and what Capital One's vision really for creating this community space is about. So just a real quick history. Goes all the way back to actually the late 1800s. The image in the upper left-hand corner is of the Maplewood Estate. That was, if you're familiar with the Capital One campus, was right at the heart of, actually quite literally underneath Capital One Hall, or on the same ground, the same hallowed ground that Capital One Hall now occupies, was the Maplewood Estate. A very active estate, was a dairy farm, and really a transient point for some of the Washington, DC elite and socialites on their journey out towards the mountains and the foothills here in Northern Virginia, kind of a stopover on their way out to the Middleburg areas for a number of years. Was demolished in the 1970s, quickly kind of redeveloped. You'll see the middle image was an image taken in the kind of late 70s, early 80s of the West Group complex of buildings that occupied this space. But again, this catalyst was not only Capital One's acquisition of the property, but was of this introduction of public-facing transportation to the area that really has driven this densification, this mixed-use concept, and really has been the catalyst for all things that Capital One has going on in the space. So just a few kind of highlights to mention. We did acquire the property in 1999, opened our headquarters building in 2002. That's the building that for the last 20 years has been situated right there at the intersection of 495 and 123. Opened in 2018. Our headquarters tower. You've, I think, probably all been familiar with that very iconic and beautiful building here along the Beltway. In 2019, we purchased 10 acres across the street. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But really in 2020 was really the opening of our campus to the public with the construction and opening of Capital One Hall, the Watermark, and the Perch, this notion of urban mixed-use development coming here to Tysons. And a little bit of a tease, we do have opening later this year, Center 3, which is another beautiful building that will be fully occupied when opened by Capital One. Twin towers graced by this incredible, beautiful atrium. And it'll house about 3,200 of our associates when it opens later this year. So really excited about that. But long story short, Fairfax County is Capital One's home. We were founded in 1994, have been headquartered since then in Fairfax County. We're so drawn when we think about why did we locate here? Why did we locate specifically in Tysons? Certainly the geographic adjacencies to some of the airports and roadways were such an advantage. The talent market, I mean, that's really what it's about, right? We're a maker company, a company of creators, really landing ourselves and grounding ourselves with a market of talent from a recruitment and retention standpoint that helps to grow the company, and certainly the quality of life. All of these are prime aspects of why we're here in the county. And why Capital One Center, right? Why did we not just create this office park for our own needs? Why have we thought about branching out and opening, this beautiful piece of real estate, this beautiful campus to the public? Really, when you think about it, this is about creating, first and foremost, a home for our associates, a place where they feel comfortable. If you've ever been in a Capital One office environment, very heavily and well amenitized, really trying to recruit and retain the top talent. And we've gone through a tech journey over the last decade or so, really as we've advanced a lot of the banking growth, of our financial services into kind of a more online and cloud-based environment. So needed to recruit and retain the top talent in the tech sector. And a lot of the reflection of what we've done is to that end. But also wanted to recognize this community, wanted to recognize everything that Fairfax County has meant to the growth of our company, and all that each of the individual players have made to create kind of this environment. And so wanted to recognize that and create spaces that allow the community to come together to that end, and really being thoughtful about spaces in the arts, be thoughtful about spaces that provoke kind of new thought and engagement of thought. And so couldn't be more happy to call, Fairfax County and specifically Tysons our home. What judges success? I get asked this question a lot. Like, what do I feel like? When have we succeeded in all of this? And I actually this isn't a corporate kind of line, but I go to kind of the center block here in blue is what makes people smile, right? It's an emotional response. Like if people aren't happy and aren't engaged, then to me, we haven't done justice to the spaces that we've been developing. And so there's nothing that gives me more joy than to see people come into campus, leave campus with a smile. That's success. But how do we do that, right? It's about fostering and creating environments, spaces, programming that people feel welcome. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter, what walk of life you've arrived to Capital One Center through. It's about the fact that you feel welcome here, you feel included here, and you feel listened to here. And a lot of that is an extension really of Capital One's corporate philosophy in terms of how we view our associates, our workplace, and our business. And then really trying to create experiences, right? I mean, that's what life is about meaningful experiences. It's about not just, what show did you go to, what restaurant did you eat at, but like, what was that experience start to finish, and really trying to double down on that. And we have a unique opportunity to control a lot of that experience. So trying to really focus on the experience from start to finish. And if you'll look at the images here, like those are by design. It's about people, right? If we can create incredible real estate, design all these beautiful buildings, design all these incredible parks and spaces, but if it's not a place that people want to come, if they don't feel like this is their home, then we've missed the mark. And so really it's about people and togetherness. And that really, like I said, is a bit of an extension of Capital One's workplace philosophy, really just extending that into the public space. And so what is success? It's about people. If we don't have people, and we don't have people that are encouraged, people that are excited, people that are proud to be here, then we haven't hit the success mark. But I think we have. So. And then community engagement. I can't focus like more on this. How do we give back to the community in all that we do? And we found some really interesting ways to do that through our built real estate portfolio. Nonetheless, through programming and events, have had some incredible community events that have brought tens of thousands of people to campus, but just together, right? But also looking at some of the unique opportunities. We live in a very affluent community, but there's also so much opportunity in this space too. So really trying to recognize where there's gaps in our whole philosophy as a community, and really try to hone in on those and to create spaces and environments where every member of our community can feel celebrated and can feel engaged. Some of these, just kind of looking around the slide here, I had the chance to meet with some of the folks from Gum Springs, and this even transcends Tyson's, but the Gum Springs community down in the south east of the county. Fantastic community down there. One of the first freed slaves communities coming out of Mount Vernon, and it's just an incredibly rich community, and trying to find ways that we can ingratiate ourselves with that space. In the center there, we have a Make-A-Wish opportunity that, due to some of Capital One's unique connections with the Washington Wizards, we're able to create this basketball court in the backyard of a young cancer surviving individual. Amazing. And then some of the opportunities, especially with some of the lack of adequate lunch and food opportunities that a lot of our students in the county face, able to create some lunch packages, particularly through the pandemic when they're out of school, some places where these individuals that are on, reduced or free lunch programs can be, can still be accommodated. So it's really been absolutely amazing to find ways to integrate our mission into those needs of our local community and to celebrate those. And a lot of this begins with placemaking, right? I mean, I know this is kind of a term that we hear a lot, but what is placemaking? And a lot of different developers or landowners all have different ways that they kind of benchmark placemaking. And it really, to me, is a blend of architecture, right? I mean, that's where it really begins with, but it doesn't start and end with architecture. It begins to create places that, again, with this common thread of where people want to be, where they feel celebrated, and where they feel recognized. And so just highlighting a few of those unique kind of opportunities that we've been able to catalyze on. Nonetheless, the Perch, I don't know if folks have been able to come to the Perch or not, but it's this incredible 2.5 acre public park, 11 stories up in the air. Like, who does that, right? But really tried to create something special, something unique. And I think that's one thing that I love about what we've tried to do here is to create unique experiences. And experiences that engage, again, back in thought and creativity, diversity. These are all like common tenets of our workplace and our goals within Capital One. And how can we create the built environment as an extension of those? I look at, some of these pictures here. One of my favorites actually is on the lower right. I don't know if people know what that image is on the lower right, but that's a traffic light control box. So, VDOT and the county say, like, you have to have a traffic light control box, and it can only go right here. Well, that happens to be, if you're familiar with the site, like right in front of our headquarters and right in front of the entrance to Capital One Hall. And that's where thou must go. But we said, you know what? Okay, like, why fight it? Let's celebrate it, right? And so had a great local muralist come in and decorate that box. If it has to be there, how can we celebrate it? And really interestingly, that's been so well received by some of the county staff, some of the planning staff, even some of the supervisors, that they're taking some of these cues and starting to apply them to other developments or other projects within the area, within the county, to try to take some of these kind of cues of how can we integrate like the must-have, but not create it as a negative, create it as a positive. And so I really love that image. It speaks a lot to what we tried to do here. And I think the other thing when we think about placemaking is this sense of scale, right? I love the image in the middle of the picture is this like incredible dynamic skyline, the lit crown of our headquarters tower, the fireworks in the background. Those are certainly viewed from afar and really well received, but how do we create something on the pedestrian scale, on the human level, on the sidewalks, on the streetscape, activations that don't make people feel like they're in this kind of tower, glass tower zone, but really bring it down to scale. And love some of the other activations that you see here that we've been able to create to really, communicate with the human, with the individual, with the guest. And this is the question that we always get, right? In this kind of somewhat post-COVID world, is what does this mean to the future of the workplace? So Capital One does have about 12,000 associates in the Tysons market. We did officially return to the office. Nothing here is revolutionary or new news as it might be. But what does the return to the office look like for Capital One? And I can give you just a little bit of a glimpse into that. So as has been communicated, we are in this hybrid world. I think for all of us, and even for myself, like, there's a lot of ambiguity in what does hybrid mean, and we'll all figure that out together. And that's really part of Capital One's kind of strategy here is let's call it hybrid, but let's kind of adapt and flow and see what that means to the associate, to the individual, to our business. And we can find ways to maybe further define that as time goes on. But what it boils down to is we're in the office now as of September 6th, Tuesday through Thursday, with a lot of flexibility, right? Recognizing that through technology, through Zoom like we're on today, like there's a lot of ability for people to work as they feel comfortable and as they feel productive. And we have the technology to be able to do that. But also recognizing that different individuals, different families have different needs at different times, and want to be respectful of that and create an environment that certainly supports that. You know, I think one of the things that I find really interesting, and a little bit of a pat on the back of our company, is when COVID first was March of 2020, right? That you know, this kind of notion of COVID started to really you know, matriculate into the office environment, and we started to work from home. I personally thought we were home for 2 weeks. That was like, we had like a board like on the office, like how long, like on the whiteboard, like guessing like how long do you think we'll be working remotely, and my guess was 2 weeks. We're right back in. So I left like my chips like in the desk, you know, all these other things just kind of ready to come back, and some of us had to come back. But here we are, you know, 2 years later, just finally starting to return to work. But what I can say is that Capital One's workplace strategy pre-COVID really set us up so well for this post-COVID, if that's what we can call ourselves, this environment that we're in, this post-COVID environment. So what it was really about is creating spaces that present flexibility in the way people work from a day-to-day standpoint, and investing heavily in technology. Joe knows well, like there were some times, and I know some peers and friends that didn't know what, like if they were able, a lot of them didn't even have laptops. I mean, let's be honest, like, you know, rewinding ourselves back to March of 2020, a lot of folks didn't even have laptops, nor did they have VPN access. And who knew what Zoom was? I mean, that for a lot of folks, that was, or Microsoft Teams, like these were all like, I've been on one of those calls before, but I don't really know what that means. We were so well positioned just from a strategic standpoint in our workplace to be able to flip those switches on and activate those, and to allow our workforce, whether it's call center workers or office, or heck, even our CEO, we're able to turn those switches on very quickly and empower our workforce to work remote. And I think that's really paid dividends for us, you know, over the course of the pandemic, and as we really think about the future of the workplace. But I can't kind of emphasize enough this kind of blue bucket here. It's about the individual, it's about empowering them, it's about making them feel comfortable and creating environments, right? I mean, this is our workplace discussion. This is our Capital One Center discussion. It's about creating and fostering environments where people feel comfortable and where they can do their best work, whether it's work for Capital One, whether it's work for another cause or another company, but it's about creating environments where people feel comfortable. And that's what this is really all about for us. We have some pretty cool stuff coming down the pipeline too. For folks that have been here, you know, if you've been able to enjoy the Perch or the mini golf course up on the roof, like who does that? Pretty wild stuff. But has some really interesting development on the pipeline. I wanted to just give a little bit of a tease into that. So we just broke ground about in 2019. We acquired, I mentioned earlier, 10 acres of property across the street for future expansion, but don't really have, you know, like I said, that's speculative growth. I mean, we hope we get there and have to build, you know, gigantic office towers and mixed use residential and things like that sooner than later. But we had a unique opportunity to purchase that space, and really thought about ways that we could, in the interim, and I love this notion of like interim use, right? There's a lot of things that we do, even on our main campus, that are interim use conditions, and have found really great reception and support from the county in that, but had a great opportunity to create a baseball field. And so we broke ground several months ago on this incredible facility that's going to be such a anchor for youth sports and others, other sports environments within the community to be able to land and call home. And that's the Capital One East or Capital One Center baseball field. So incredible space, and trying to really work with the county, work with some of our adjacent landowners to advance some of the transportation projects too along the way. So trying to create this grid of streets that you might have heard of within Tyson's that will really foster, foster the movement of vehicles, pedestrians, and everything else along the way, and create some public parks at the same time. And then down on the lower half is Block D. This is a project, if you're familiar with the campus, between Wegmans and Capital One Hall to the metro station. There's a project that's funded through the county and with WMATA to create a back door, if you will, to the McLean metro station. And so one of our proffered obligations is to create a park at that same point. And so trying to accelerate some of those park projects to really help foster the connection, the sense of place, and really this general idea of placemaking across the campus as a whole, and create these, convenient, frictionless conduits of connection to the beyond Capital One Center world and within the Capital One Center world. And then, like, all this doesn't happen if we don't create a robust environment of retail. What we're trying to really do is create an environment that, transcends the 9 to 5 workday. If not, we end up with the little office cafeteria or the little office cafe down at the bottom of the building that closes at 2 o'clock. I mean, they have some incredible, trust me, don't get me wrong, some of those have the best like eggs and bacon and grits that you can ever like come across, but we want to create this as a 24/7 kind of living, breathing environment. So when Capital One leaves for the day, let's say at 5 o'clock on a Friday, this environment still thrives and is still really energized and activated. And so have had a lot of great success with our retailers that have opened to date. I mean, nonetheless, Wegmans, Star Hill, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Star Hill Beer Garden, it's just an incredible space. I'm not sure there's many people up there this evening with the storms that came through. Perch Putt, we just opened an 18-hole miniature golf course up on their roof, but really excited about what's in the pipeline too on the right-hand side of the screen. So really unique, try to hyper focus on local Virginia or at least DMV-based retailers, best in class, to come in and create, help round out kind of this sense of environment within Capital One Center. And this slide I am most excited about, and that's about, this really is about our relationship with the Fairfax County EDA. So I can't speak more highly about Anna, about Andrew, and what they have helped to storytell. Like, we're all storytellers, right? So we're creators and we're storytellers. And some of the partnership that we've been able to coalesce with the EDA, these are just two of the most amazing examples. The New York Times, Fast Company, to be able to tell this story, not about Capital One Center necessarily, but about Fairfax County, about what an incredible place this is to do business. For all the reasons that Capital One is here that I described earlier, how many other companies have we seen more recently too, I mean, some of the successes of companies relocating or locating their offices here, I think is just such a justification of what a great place this is to live, to work, to play, and now to entertain. So can't be more appreciative of the EDA team and all the work that they do behind the scenes and in front to make this a story, and to be able to help tell that story at a national scale is just really, really quite incredible. And then a little bit of selfishness, like keep engaged with us, stay connected. There's an incredible lineup of shows coming to Capital One Hall. We have, I think on the next slide when we get there, we have a great event this weekend at the Perch called Perch Fest. It's the third time we've hosted this event. We've had, in the past 2 events, we've had about 10,000 people on average come through over the weekend. That's tremendous for Fairfax County. I mean, think about that. And what I love is I live in Arlington, but when I'm up at the Perch, I see my neighbors, I see people from the grocery store, from the gym, from like all these other like people that I would never expect to see out here in Tysons, out here in Fairfax County, because they're in Arlington, right? They're in their little bubble. They're all coming out to Fairfax and experiencing what we have to offer. And so that's incredible for me, just to see, to see some of those faces out here. And if you'll flip to the next slide, Andrew, certainly want to leave a little bit of time for Q&A, but again, wanted to invite all of you to come to Perch Fest. It's just a fantastic weekend, no registration necessary, a lot of family-friendly entertainment activities. It's great music, great drinks, great food. And then we announced last week on Friday that we're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Capital One Hall. And we have the kind of 90s kind of reggae rock band Sublime coming. And so also wanted to extend the offer to anyone on the call. Would love to have you join us Tuesday, October 4th for that event. And if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me and I can secure some tickets for anyone that might be interested to join us at that show. So with
Jonathan,
that,
thank you. This has been a fabulous presentation. It's so exciting. And of course, your excitement is just contagious. I just want to support the Perch Fest. I've been to one. I had a fabulous time. The beer was great. The food was great. They had puppies there at the time I was there. They were doing little puppies. I mean, who doesn't go for puppies? Anyway, and it was easy to get in. It was a really fabulous event. And the music, it was a Beatles, the one I went to, it was a Beatles thing. No, not the real Beatles, but a Beatles group. So I just want to plug that for everybody this weekend, if you can go. But I'd like to open it up. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, Jonathan, it's James Quigley. First of all, that fantastic presentation, especially one in which it's great to see an organization, obviously a capitalistic organization, is trying to, change the way we look at banking, but so focused on embedding themselves in the community. And it feels like too that this is becoming a trend in order to attract talent and to engage the local workforce and certainly customers. But Capital One seems to have been ahead of the curve there for a long time. So thank you for everything you do for our county and the region. A couple of quick questions though. So obviously we've seen some very large companies who've backed away from some of their large real estate projects. Salesforce.com just recently announced of what is the largest office building in San Francisco now, that they're abandoning half of it, which was giving back 412,000 square feet. And then they canceled another 325,000 square feet of new office buildings that they were going to put in San Francisco, with the thought, with the focus and the communication around, hey, hybrid is we're getting more and more pushback that they don't really need as much office because people, as much as hybrid is 2-3 days a week, that people are still maybe only choosing to go one day a week or even less. It seems like from your presentation that you guys are full speed ahead on some of your development projects and consuming all of the space you currently have now. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, you're maybe the difference between yourself and Salesforce? Are you seeing a continued press towards wanting to return to office?
Well, I think that's a fantastic question, and very well anticipated too, because that seems to be a lot of the conversation in the market, you know, locally and beyond. I think several things that are maybe differential relative to Capital One is one that we view real estate as a long-term play, and a lot of the facilities that we're constructing, James, are owned. In fact, all of them are owned facilities, and you know, whatever the market bears and whatever trends relative to hybrid work or otherwise, you know, might come to play, I think we're optimistic that at some point in time there will be a fairly significant return to the office. A lot of that is driven by this notion of like collaboration. You know, you can't create some of these moments that are innovative, that are provoking, that are, you know, kind of just these casual collisions that I mentioned earlier over Zoom, right? Or over this remote, in a remote situation. Everything's a 30-minute Zoom meeting increment. And I think there's so much value in that human connection and being together. Now, do we need to be together like we were 3 years ago from, you know, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday? I think that's to be seen, but there's so much opportunity and innovation that's created when we, you know, do have those moments that are unscripted. And I think that's where a lot of the power in our strategy from a workplace environment comes to bear. And then, you know, quite frankly, like I said, we do have the unique opportunity to own much of our real estate. And when you talk about Salesforce, I'm not exactly, I know some of the conversation, I'm not exactly sure of their portfolio in San Francisco necessarily, but I'm imagining it's not an owned portfolio. And so there are certain things when you do own and build to suit and, you know, leverage the capital investment for other business purposes that I think we're uniquely situated to recognize efficiencies and opportunities in.
Thank you. First of all, I totally agree with you. We used to say collisions create creativity. And I think the US as a whole, especially in the tech sector, which is clearly where this is affecting, and Capital One is a tech company, you guys would probably agree with that, is that I think we're going to take a hit in the innovation space because of how these casual collisions create creativity. So
I'm going, I mean, certainly off script a little bit from the corporate line, but I couldn't agree more. And I think that what's been created, you know, throughout COVID is a lack of innovation for several years and a lack of those creative collision moments. And I do worry just personally about what that means, you know, for our, you know, not for Capital One, but just for our society as a whole. I think we have taken a few steps back with regard to that.
So we have another minute or two. Do we have another question? Commissioner Mitchell?
No question, just a comment. I just want to congratulate everyone on Cap Center for being such a phenomenal presence in the entire region and really setting the bar high. It just proves what happens when an entire organization is committed to a region. And I love what you said when you opened your presentation that you guys started here and you had no intention of leaving. And I think that we need more Capital One success stories in the area in order to make it grow the way it should grow. So congratulations to just a tremendous successful future that you have.
And I'll just add, I know we have to wrap up here, but it's also a testament to how Fairfax County does its business and attracts talent and workforce and corporations. There's not economic incentive dollars that necessarily get it, but actually the way that we recruit businesses to come and grow in Fairfax County is because of the environment and because of the talent of the EDA for a large part of it, to kind of make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into, to a high-class education, to a connected hub of innovation and talent. And so that really is why that has made us so happy to be here. I'll just add, Jonathan's always looking for suggestions. So I know I ping his email box saying, I would love for Taylor Swift to come up to Capital One Hall. We don't care about the Capital One Arena downtown DC. Come to Capital One Hall, or maybe Fairfax County owns Jason Sudeikis to do a Ted Lasso talk at Capital One Hall. But Jonathan is a real asset and friend. He really has great vision, and I think he's not only great for Capital One, but he's been a great addition to Fairfax County's leadership. We do need to get him to move to Fairfax County, though, and I will make that my mission to my fellow commissioners.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. Thank you so much. And we really will think about things that we can put in the suggestion box. Maybe some of them maybe you'll like, maybe some of them you won't, but we certainly will offer our opinions. So thank you for being with us tonight. And hey, everybody go to Perch Fest. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Thank
It'll
you
be
for
a
the
lot of fun.
plug, and thanks
Yeah.
so much for having me. And really, again, I can't be more appreciative of the work that this team does and the extension of the EDA office. It really is a partnership that we're so thrilled to be a part of. And, you know, if the power of us being together is so strong, right, in telling our story. So thank you all again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next item, and that is Vice President Hurwitz is going to be giving an overview of the financial audit report for FY22.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. In the information packet that you received for this meeting was a copy of our draft financial audit report. It was a 40-page document with lots of, numbers and charts. But the reason I'm bringing this to you now is that when our fiscal year ends, June 30th, our county finance team, the EDA finance team, and our outside auditors, Cherry Beckert, immediately begin work on the financial audit. And that work continues through October. The Commonwealth of Virginia requires every county to submit their comprehensive annual financial reports prior to November 1st. So our financial report is a piece that gets rolled up into Fairfax counties and submitted to the Commonwealth before November 1st. Therefore, next month, I will actually bring you the final financial audit report and ask you to vote to approve it, because this board is required to approve our report before it can go on. So I bring you the draft simply as an information item, since it's not final yet, and give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. There are a couple of elements that I'll quickly mention from our financial statements. You are already most familiar with our revenues that come from the Fairfax County General Fund. That is where we get our funding for our operating and personnel budgets that I report on to you each month. Another element of revenue that you see in these statements is the county grant fund that are held for the EDA by the county. And this most notably includes grants that come from the Commonwealth, from the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund that provides incentive money to companies. This is not money from Fairfax County, it comes from the state, but they transfer the money to the county, and that goes through the EDA grant fund. And it's very important, as you can imagine, that we manage this well. Kathy Riley is responsible for managing this beautifully, and it's something that does receive a lot of attention from the auditors every year. In addition to putting together our financial statements, they do compliance audits of every aspect of our fiduciary responsibilities. And I'm proud to say that once again, we have passed all those compliance audits with flying colors. The other thing that is new this year, and this has been a challenge for our county finance accounting staff, is that the GASB 87 was implemented. GASB are the government accounting standards, and 87 dictates how leases are accounted for in financial statements. So there have been some adjustments that have had to be made this year. None of this affects our operating funds. You know, everything balances out each year, as you're well aware from the financial reports that I bring to you. The last element that I want to mention that you'll see in this report is a very detailed accounting of all of the conduit debt. The IRBs that this board is permitted to let, and the county bonds as well. And their outstanding balances, as you can well imagine, are a really critical piece of the county financial statements. And I just want to say thank you to Mr. Graff, our legal counsel, for a lot of research and work that goes into providing that updated piece of the report every year.
Thank
So,
you as always for your patience with me on that.
well, it's a team effort, and I do appreciate, you know, Mike has to go to the lenders of all of the outstanding IRBs and get information about the current balances. And, you know, these instruments get sold and so many changes occur. It is not a simple process. So thank you. As I said, this is an information item, no vote, but if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them for you.
I'd like to make a comment, Donna, and that is to the commissioners on page 8, item number 7, economic factors facing the authority and the county. I suggest you read that pretty carefully. And if you have any suggestions for how we are describing what we do, it would be useful to give it before the final report. But I thought it was really well done because it covered the major categories that impact economic development in our county. So I refer you to that. I had no suggestions, but I wanted to bring that to the commissioner's attention. Any other?
Page 8.
I'm sorry?
Page 8.
Yeah, page 8.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's item number 7 in the report, but page 8 through 11.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, bottom of page 8. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Donna, for all this work, and thank you to the team for continuing to manage the fiduciary responsibilities of this organization. So we
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item. We have a farewell to Jan Mohl tonight because today is going to be his final EDA commission meeting. He is retiring after 18 years of extraordinary service from the EDA. As the director of our International Business Investment Division, Jan has led the international staff here as well as the representatives in our 5 overseas offices. He has grown the international program over the years and increased the level of international investment in our community. In the past 5 years, Jan personally worked on prospects that generated close to 2,000 jobs and over 500,000 square feet. One of these projects was the retention of the very important and prestigious VW Americas US headquarters. Thank you, Jan, for helping us with that. When Jan started at the EDA, there were 292 foreign-owned firms in Fairfax County. There are now 442 foreign-owned firms. Over the years, Jan has worked prospects hosted delegations, traveled to all of our strategic markets, and created a team that is cohesive and effective. Jan has been the consummate professional and has served in leadership positions on key committees for the Northern Virginia Technology Council, the Board of Directors for the British American Business Association, and the Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce. Jan is retiring in a few weeks and will be spending time with his family, which includes 4 precious granddaughters. But first, he and his wife will be traveling to New Zealand and Australia to launch their next chapter with a grand adventure. Jan will be sorely missed at the EDA, but we wish him great happiness in his well-deserved retirement. Jan, we will miss you. Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Chair Lang. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll give you a round of
Absolutely.
virtual applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let me move into another area of comment, and that is going to be focused. I don't know if we have a slide for this. I think we might. On thought leadership. In October, these are our upcoming speakers. In October, we will hear from Karen Merrick, Secretary of Commerce and Trade for the Commonwealth of Virginia. She'll share with us the governor's vision for growing the state economy through a talent pipeline. And I'm telling you, this was not an easy thing to get. So thank you, President Hoskins. Great job. Next slide, yes. And I'm very excited about this gentleman. In December, we will conclude the calendar year with a presentation from Anispan. I don't know if I've said that correctly, but Basu, Chairman and CEO of Sage Policy Group. He will discuss the economic outlook and will share with us an in-depth analysis on the major factors impacting the economy. This is going to be an in-depth presentation, so I'm just warning you, it's like 45 minutes of in-depth presentation, and we are so lucky to have him. We're very fortunate to have him on our roster and to help us understand this group's perspective on economic growth. In January of 2023, we're going to kick off the year with a discussion on the semiconductor industry. Thank you very much, Commissioner Hainsworth, for helping us get Courtney, Gedulig, if I've said that correctly. Maybe it's Gedulig, Corporate Vice President for Public Affairs at Micron. So we're very excited for that. In February, we reached out to Fairfax County Board Chairman McKay and asked him to share the state of the county. His attendance is to be confirmed. And in March, we're really excited to have James Schenk, PenFed Credit Union President and CEO. He's going to talk about his journey from the military to private sector and the finance industry. So that's what we have lined up. We are thinking about our strategic planning session, more to come on that. That will happen after the first of the year. We have some other people that we're recruiting for future sessions. Last 2 things, we are going to start our one-on-one schedules with each of you with the different Board of Supervisors. Stay tuned, that will be happening. And we hope in the October-November timeframe for an update on placemaking and talent that some of our commissioners have been working with staff on. So with that, that's my report. Any questions? With that, let me turn it over to our president.
Thank you, Chair Lang. I want to begin by really acknowledging the incredible work that Capital One has done. It really has inspired a lot of other projects in our region, helped our developers rethink. And honestly, you know, those compliments for Anna and Andrew are so appropriate because they work so hard to make it happen, working with our partners over at DCI. So I just wanted to mention that. Let me jump into these slides. I'll go through them as quickly as possible. There are quite a few. We had a very busy August. I kicked off a conversation with the Wall Street Journal. This is something that our consultants DCI and Anna worked on. And this really was a background interview, just getting them to know what Northern Virginia is all about, how it's transformed, where it sits in terms of the evolution of its ecosystem, and the competitive advantages that we offer to our companies in terms of talent, in terms of location, in terms of being able to reach around the world through our airports. This Virginia Economic Development Partnership, I continue to serve for the Regional Economic Development Organization on that group. We actually meet, as I mentioned before, once a month, and we go over all the developing policies in VEDP, but also in the Department of Commerce and Transportation that relate to our work in economic development. And I'm able to do this because I'm still serving as chair of the NOVA Economic Development Alliance. Next slide, please. I had the honor, and I want to thank Stephen Partridge, because I'm sure he had something to do with it, and also the president of NOVA, Anna Kress. She invited me to be part of the panel, which spoke on workforce at their convocation. There were a couple of hundred people in the audience, about 1,000 people online. It was an amazing discussion. We had an economist, actually she's a VP with the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, kind of started with an overview, and then we dug down into how we really need to get our companies more closely connected with these educational programs that are related to credentials and that actually stack to move toward degrees. So that was really the primary part of the discussion. Connected DMV continues to move along. As you know, I sit on the steering committee panel along with the deputy mayor of DC and the representative for the Maryland Alliance. We're still working on our economic development strategy. We are hoping it'll be finished by the end of the year. One of the big parts of it right now that's being worked on is actually the branding. And Jatender and Alex Imes and others from our team are actually working on that in earnest. Next slide, please. Speaking of Alex actually presented at BizNow. And his presentation was actually focused on Richmond Highway opportunities, Springfield opportunities, and Chantilly opportunities. And the audience were brokers, investors, and real estate developers. And what he was trying to do is bring their interest to those areas. As you know, we've done a lot of research on those areas now. We're sharing that data and trying to really get interest moving in that direction. Also, the Department of Economic Initiatives, led by Rebecca Moldry, worked with Alex to host a reception for the new president of the International Economic Development Council. You know, he's right over the river in DC. He came over and had an opportunity to see the Perch. So he was thrilled to see the placemaking work that we're doing that's related to economic development. Next slide, please. So the NOVA Economic Development Alliance continues to roll along. We actually had the new dean of the business school, Dr. Vince from George Mason University, speak to our group. And at the end of the conversation, all of the economic development directors were excited because what he was laying out was a vision of a greater connection between, you know, companies, company growth, and talent. So, and that's where we all are these days. I also had an opportunity to kick off the Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce Innovate Conference. Thank you, Jan. That was one of Jan's last actions. Him and Anna helped me get on that agenda. And it was a really great, the panels were great. They really focused on a lot of the jobs, the jobs that we don't think about, the mechanic jobs, the fact that there are hundreds of jobs at the airport, and in areas that we normally don't look at because we talk a lot about technology. So it was really kind of like the other jobs, the plumber jobs, the construction jobs. And honestly, I don't know if you guys have had a plumber at your house recently. They make pretty good money. They make six figures. So it was all about how to get the interest of those kids in high school and in junior high school in this direction and letting them know that that's a good way to make a living for your family. Next slide, please. I had the opportunity with Supervisor Smith to tour the Westville Business Park, and also with the gentleman that oversees the business park organization. I did that with David Kelly, and I had gone there about 3 or 4 months after I joined Fairfax County Economic Development. And at that time, I talked to the supervisor about some of the things she'd hoped to do. She was talking about trying to attract a big grocery store, and they were talking to Wegmans and, building some residential. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. Hundreds of townhouses, 500, 600 units of rental housing, Wegmans, She had a Pete's Coffee, one of my favorite coffee place, restaurants. Really an incredible transformation, but it kind of made me think of, with the right strategic approach, you can actually transform these somewhat isolated business parks. And it's mixing the uses, it's creating paths, bike paths and walking paths, and thinking about the human scale, as John talked about, and how the human feels in that environment. Next slide, please. So tomorrow there's going to be a ribbon cutting. This is an event that's going to be with with Beanstalk. Beanstalk is a hydroponic vertical farming company, very innovative. They raised a couple of $1 million to start this company. It's in Herndon. Herndon has been getting a lot of action lately. They had Hawkeye 360 not too long ago. But this one will be attended by the governor and the Secretary of Agriculture. We helped the company access some funding from the Department of Agriculture as a grant to help them expand their business. Also in the evening tomorrow, I'll be speaking to a Dartmouth real estate group about public-private partnerships and how important they are in terms of developing communities. And I'm going to try to get some of those guys to start looking at Northern Virginia for some investment opportunities. Next slide, please. So the DMV Congress is continuing to move along. We have a meeting toward the end of this week. The big thing that's on our agenda for this fall is actually the Quantum World Conference. It's going to be in Washington, D.C. It is for the entire D.C. region. Quantum computing has a very strong following, and actually a lot of research going on at George Mason University, at Howard University, University of Maryland College Park, and Virginia Tech. So we're really trying to draw in attention from around the world. There is no World Congress like this right now, so this conference like this right now. So this is really going to be an exciting market opportunity for us to attract attention here. There will be Nobel laureates involved. We're actually sponsoring the program, and so is the Maryland Alliance. And then on Friday, we're going to have some media training. Back up real quick. We have some media training for our staff, just so that they use the right words when they're talking to the media. We have to keep our message clear. We all need training in this. We all need to, make our message consistent. And when you're consistent, then everybody understands which direction to move in. Next slide, please. This weekend, I'm going down on Sunday to Richmond to be part of a conference that starts on Monday. It's the Site Selectors Conference. This is where we get a lot of our business for the year. So I'm really excited about this. A lot of these folks I haven't seen in 3 years because the last Site Selector Conference was about 3 years ago. I'm going representing the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance as the primary representative. And I really think we're going to get some great business out of this, because a lot of these folks are in the aerospace and aeronautics industries, and we have great depth in that in our Northern Virginia. And the last item is the Innovation Ecosystem Reception, which is going to take place September 30th, George Mason University. I'm really excited about that opportunity. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna to talk about marketing and communications. Anna.
Thank you, Victor, Chair Lang, and commissioners. We have another great month behind us that I want to talk about. Andrew, if you can go to the first slide. So we ended up month of August with earned media value of nearly $40 million. I think that's probably at least the past 12 months, a PR, I would say, for our earned media value. And I can tell you, it's again, the power of the story. Hilton took us over the edge this month. I mean, the Hilton expansion of their headquarters just started living its own life as a story. We got coverage in 3 continents, and it morphed from Hilton is staying and expanding in Fairfax County to alert, there are jobs available in the hospitality industry in the next 5 years. Just unbelievable. And so really they took it over the top. We had some other great coverage. Andrew, if you go to the next slide, just a couple of examples. Obviously, I talked about Hilton, but I wanted to point out that we not only got coverage in the kind of the prime media and international, but we also, interestingly enough, are starting to see movement in some very targeted media For example, Travel Noir is a digital publication that is geared toward Black millennials. So we're starting to find some new ways of getting our message out, both from the business investment perspective as well as the talent perspective. So that's very exciting to me. The other theme this past month in the media that we were able to kind of hype up was the HBCUs looking to establish a presence in Northern Virginia. We had exceptional coverage, and this was another story that just kind of took off, and it's living its own life now in various mediums outside of the norm. So we're excited to kind of find new ways to spread the message in targeted audiences that we haven't done before. Next slide, Andrew. And I also wanted to mention one other national level coverage, which DCI continues to pitch nationally, our stories. They're doing a fantastic job. Military.com, thanks to DCI, picked up our career fair story. We obviously have 2 career fairs, one virtual, one in person, coming up next week that are targeted to veterans, military personnel in transition, and spouses, as well as cleared talent. And to have something like this, in the national sphere and in the target audiences fingertips is just, it's pretty unbelievable, because once you get into the actual community, you really can start spreading the message like a wildfire. The other piece that I did want to mention that we're doing, and I don't think it was mentioned earlier, but we are having some localized advertising for the career fair this time around. Now that we're more in person, we're doing radio ads in the region. So you might be hearing those, which is a shift from what we've been doing for digital, because we do want to get more attendance locally and regionally at the in-person fair next week. I'm sorry. So we're trying different strategies to make sure that we're not getting only to the target audiences digitally, but also get more attendance locally and regionally. And I think that was it for me. So back to you, Victor.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. I really want to thank Dr. Johnson for his support in helping us get connected with the White House initiative related to the historically Black colleges. Mike isn't here right now. Mike is caught a bug. The way he described it, I'm sure he got a version of something. But the poor thing, I feel so sorry for him. But he wasn't here to say this. But Dr. Johnson did a great job getting us connected and helping us really start forming relationships with that group. And I think that that's going to grow over time. So thank you, Dr. Johnson. And with that, I'll turn it back to Kathy.
Thank you very much. So I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. We continue to operate on all cylinders, and I want to thank the EDA team for their incredible contribution to our county, to our region, to our businesses, and to the people that live and work here. And I want to add that element that Cap 1 talked about, which is arts and culture. I thought that was a fabulous addition to how we want to think about living, working, and playing in our county and in our region. So with that, we're going to wrap up for the evening. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sabu. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And so, Mike, can you bring us out by consent?
Sure.
Yeah.
If there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.